Morgan was Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice.
Cassie for 17 years, but things went sour after she alleged that Diddy beat her with a wooden coat hanger and she signed an NDA.
Did a single moment in court make Diddy lose all composure? You won't believe what set him off when Carrie Morgan, Cassie's best friend, took the stand.
Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice. The first time in a home Combs was renting in the Hollywood Hills. Morgan testified that, quote, "I saw him push her. I'm pretty sure he hit her." The second time allegedly happened in Jamaica. Morgan says they were in the bar area of a home when, quote, "I heard her screaming." She recalled guttural, terrifying screams. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing.
The courtroom was buzzing with quiet conversations and the sound of shuffling papers as everyone settled in for what they thought would be just another day in court. The atmosphere wasn't exactly tense yet, but there was an undeniable heaviness in the air. Diddy sat at his table composed, leaning back slightly in his chair. His legal team was beside him, flipping through notes and appearing confident as if they had the day mapped out. The media seated behind the courtroom. Barriers whispered amongst themselves, cameras ready to capture anything remotely interesting. And then, to everyone's surprise,
Morgan was on the stand. That was Cassie Ventura's former best friend. What did Carrie say happened after that incident?
Cassie Ventura left the Intercontinental Hotel, went back to her apartment, her home, and there was Carrie Morgan waiting. She said immediately she saw the black eye that Ventura had testified Combs gave her after the freak-off got violent, and the whole reason why then the subsequent assault in the hallway happened. And then Carrie Morgan said about a half hour later, Sean Combs starts banging on the door with a hammer. It was not let in, but she said she heard him yelling, finally called some of Combs' staff members to try to get him to leave. Police were called, but Cassie Ventura said, and Carrie Morgan backed this up, that nothing ever came of it because Cassie Ventura refused to say anything about Sean Combs and what happened to her.
Aaron, I have to ask you, because Combs was Morgan in court today, how did he react to seeing them and hearing all of this?
He's been an attentive listener. In some cases, he would shake his head or nod along or consult with his lawyers, scribbling a lot of notes. This was an important part of the testimony because it made a turn, Eva. The jury had heard from Cassie Ventura directly about, in rather explicit terms, a lot of the sex acts. But the prosecution's whole case is that she was coerced into that sex because of the violence, the kind of violence that both Don Richard and Carrie Morgan said they witnessed. Now, the defense says there are other reasons for the violence. Jealousy, drugs, didn't have anything to do with coercing her into sex. But the prosecutors want the jury to hear these accounts to say that Cassie Ventura was not only telling the truth about being beat up, but that she had reason to then go along with Sean Combs' sexual demands.
Carrie Morgan might not be a household name, but in this case, she's become one of the most critical voices as Cassie's best friend. Carrie has come forward not just to support her, but as a key witness whose testimony could change everything. You have to ask, what does she know that others don't? What makes her words so impactful that they shook Diddy to his core? These aren't just questions people are asking out of curiosity, they're central to understanding why this trial has taken such a dramatic turn. Let's rewind a bit, Carrie. Morgan and Cassie go way back, long before the cameras in the courtroom by all accounts. Their friendship is the kind that's built on years of trust and shared experiences. Friends who were close to both women have described Carrie as fiercely loyal to Cassie, someone who's been by her side through thick and thin. And why does that matter? Because if anyone has been around long enough to see what went on behind closed doors, it's Carrie. Her proximity to Cassie over the years makes her testimony not just another statement, but a first-hand account of what Cassie endured. Carr's credibility isn't just tied to her long-standing friendship with Cassie. She's also someone who's been described as thoughtful, measured, and not the type to speak unless she's absolutely sure of her words. A source close to the case even described her as someone who doesn't do drama, which makes her decision to take the stand all the more compelling. She wasn't just dragged into the spotlight. Unwillingly, she stepped up, knowing full well the gravitas of her role in exposing the truth. But let's address the bigger question: what does Carrie actually know? According to reports, Carr's testimony isn't based on hearsay or vague observations. She claims to have directly witnessed or been told about key moments of abuse during Cassie's tumultuous relationship with Diddy. One media outlet described her as the piece of the puzzle no one saw coming, highlighting how much weight her words carry in this trial. While the exact details of her claims weren't immediately shared before her testimony, What's clear is that she's not holding back. She allegedly provided insight into patterns of control manipulation and incidents of harm that, if proven, could drastically shift the case in Cassie's favor. What also sets Carrie apart is her willingness to stand up to someone as powerful and influential as Diddy. It's not easy to go against a global icon in a public courtroom. Nearly everyone watching the case has commented on the sheer courage it takes to speak out, especially knowing the immense legal resources Diddy has at his disposal. This isn't someone who's looking for attention. Carr's statement suggests she's determined to seek justice for her friend, regardless of the personal risk that makes her testimony impossible to ignore. So here's where we are. Carrie Morgan has hinted at details that no one else could provide, details that paint a disturbing picture of what allegedly went on, but the question remains, what did she actually say on the stand that sent shockwaves through the courtroom? Thoughts? The part nobody saw coming, and trust me, the allegations are explosive. Let's break down exactly what was revealed and why it left everyone, including Diddy, reeling.
Already mentioned the second witness today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. What did Carrie have to say?
So let me tell you, Carrie Morgan is crucial, and she came crucial because she comes off as credible. Because one of the first statements that she made is that she came here because she was compelled to testify. She no longer speaks to Cassie Ventura. They stopped talking in 2018 after this incident having to deal with where she was assaulted by Sean Combs, where Sean Combs grabbed her by the neck and also threw a wooden hanger at her, but also that it led to Cassie giving her $30,000 so she wouldn't say anything about that specific incident, and that was the end of their relationship. She also corroborated 2 of the assaults that took place, having to deal with Cassie in terms of her being drugged and as well as her being punched. So she corroborated a lot of the testimony, but she came off as a neutral witness, and the defense wasn't able to break her as they wanted to, but was able to say that, look, it was still a loving relationship.
Carrie Morgan's testimony wasn't just another step in the trial, it was the moment that flipped everything on its head. From the moment she sat down, there was an unmistakable shift in the room. This wasn't just any testimony, it was the one people had been waiting for, or in Diddy's case, dreading. The buzz outside the courtroom beforehand confirmed it. Her presence was highly anticipated, and when she began to speak, it became immediately obvious why what Carrie had to say wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. The allegations came out slowly, but each word seemed to carry more weight than the last. Carrie started by describing years of behavior she says she witnessed firsthand. She painted a picture of a relationship that wasn't just toxic but dangerous. She talked about moments of control, manipulation, and abuse that Cassie allegedly endured at the hands of Diddy. But what stopped everyone in their tracks was the way she described one chilling incident after another. According to Carrie, there were moments where physical violence wasn't just a possibility. It was real. She claimed to have seen bruises on Cassie more than once, and even recounted specific moments where Diddy's temper exploded with terrifying consequences. But the allegations didn't stop at physical abuse. Carrie talked about psychological manipulation, saying that Diddy often wielded his power and influence to keep Cassie under his thumb. One of the most jaw-dropping moments came when Carrie alleged that Diddy would isolate Cassie from friends and family, even going as far as monitoring her calls and texts to maintain control over her life. According to her, this wasn't just about a bad breakup or a tumultuous relationship. It was something much darker. If that wasn't enough, Carrie didn't hold back when it came to specific claims. She referenced one night in particular that left the courtroom stunned into silence. While she didn't share every detail, what she revealed was enough to leave an impact. She described a moment where Cassie allegedly called her in fear, saying Diddy's anger had reached a breaking point. Carrie claimed she had to step in and physically intervene. In action she said could have escalated the situation further if things had gone wrong. The courtroom reaction was immediate. Audible gasps rippled through the room, and at one point the judge had to ask the guy, "Settle down." Diddy's legal team exchanged frantic looks as Carrie's statements grew more explosive, but it was Diddy himself who couldn't seem to take it anymore when Carrie directly implicated him in an incident of violence, reportedly saying that he couldn't be stopped. That's when Diddy listed. He muttered something under his breath and slapped his hand on the table so loudly it echoed. Witnesses described it as a simmering rage, finally boiling over. The judge had to pause proceedings for several minutes as Did's outburst made it difficult to keep control of the room. As shocking as Carrie's statements were, one question dominated everyone's thoughts. How would Diddy's team respond to these bombshell allegations? Would they address her claims hidden or attempt to discredit her entirely? What unfolded next would only add more drama to an already chaotic trial.
I will say, I think she seemed to say things very matter of fact. There were definitely moments where there was a little bit of what I would call sass, which I didn't think was a bad thing. I think she represented herself very well, and I felt as I read what was being said, she seems like a very credible witness. I think this is going to be one that may stick out in the jury's mind because she was subpoenaed to be here. She is speaking in defense of Cassie, but at the same time, she was also very hurt by Cassie.
Yeah.
And the way that it all came out was very honest. So it's definitely an interesting one to go through.
Yeah, I mean, she's giving a perspective that it feels more like, I don't give a crap about any of these people, so I'm going to give it to you straight. I've moved on from all this, but let's go do it. And not really throwing Cassie under the bus anyway, but clearly doing it more honestly. So, so she made it clear she was only there because of the subpoena. And she confirmed that she and Cassie, who met on a modeling shoot as teenagers, no longer speak because Ventura's boyfriend ate her. Now, was this Agnifilo the Costco lawyer did end up doing this or not?
Yes, Mark Agnifilo, or as we lovingly call him, the Costco lawyer.
Because it's just funny, there's this buildup of he's finally going to do something during this trial. It was our first chance to see Costco lawyer step up to the stand, Kim, right? So we go through, let's see how he does, yeah?
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Diddy's legal team wasted no time after Carrie Morgan's explosive testimony. The Mint Court reconvened. They sprang into action, determined to regain control of the narrative. It was clear from the start that they weren't planning to take her claims at face value. Their strategy undermined Carrie's credibility and plant seeds of doubt about the validity of her allegations. The defense wasn't just building a argument, they were working to dismantle her entire role in this case. The first step of their approach became obvious during cross-examination. Diddy's lawyers focused on Carr's relationship with Cassie, hinting that her testimony may have been biased due to their close bond. You say you've always taken Cassie's side. No matter the situation, one lawyer reportedly asked, trying to frame Carrie as someone too emotionally involved to provide an objective account. They doubled down by claiming that her loyalty to Cassie could have influenced her recollection of events. According to those present in the courtroom, it was a calculated move designed to make the jury question whether Carr's perspective was rooted in truth or just blind allegiance. But the grilling didn't stop there. Diddy's lawyers began dissecting the timeline of Carr's allegations, asking pointed questions about key moments. Shah mentioned during her testimony, "Isn't it true that you weren't physically present for all of these incidents?" One lawyer pressed, attempting to highlight gaps in her story. The defense was clearly looking for inconsistencies, anything they could use to create doubt about the reliability of her statements. And when Carr's tone remained steady and her answers unwavering, they pivoted to a new tactic, questioning her motives. Throughout their cross-examination, the defense built up the suggestion that Carrie had something to gain by testifying. At one point, they implied that her decision to come forward was influenced by her own personal grievances with Diddy, rather than a genuine commitment to the truth. Would you describe your relationship with Mr. Combs as positive before this? One attorney asked, leading into a line-off questioning that insinuated Carrie might have her own reasons for wanting to damage Diddy's reputation. The implication was subtle, but hard to miss. Maybe Carrie wasn't just a witness, but an active player in a campaign against him. The back and forth between Carrie and Diddy's legal team grew so pointed that the judge had to step in multiple times to keep things on track. When one of Diddy's lawyers grew particularly forceful in their tone, the judge reminded them this court will not tolerate disrespect toward any witness. But even with those interventions, the defense made their message loud and clear. If Carr's testimony was going to shake the case, they were ready to fight tooth and nail to discredit it. Despite their aggressive approach, reactions to the defense's strategy were mixed. Some courtroom insiders felt they made an impression by poking holes in certain details of Carrie's story. Others, however, noted that Carrie remained calm and consistent, which may have only reinforced her credibility. One insider commented, "The real test will be whether the jury sees their questions as legitimate or as an attempt to intimidate her." And that's the question hanging over this case. Will the defense's efforts to weaken Carr's testimony be enough, or will her words and the evidence she provided be too compelling to dismiss? The answer to that may lie in the next piece of the puzzle: the evidence Carrie brought to court and whether it's strong enough to change the entire trajectory of this trial. Asterisk.
You two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken with her since 2018. That's true. At the danger of being capital obvious, that's a long time. She's moved on. Objection. Why haven't you spoken with her? She did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I try that line at assault. I don't know what that means. Oh, I think it means I set the line at assault. I don't cross the line of assault or whatever. You reached a settlement with Miss Ventura? The money came from Mr. Combs. So this was after, I believe, she was assaulted by Diddy, that that in order to hush her up, Diddy gave her some money. or they settled it, however it is. That's a pattern that seems to be happening with him throughout the decades. So Agnifilo shows Carrie Morgan photos, then asks, do you know if Louise Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation? Yes. Why did you send him this with words of encouragement? I don't remember sending it. Okay. I want to show you a few more photos. But first, let's talk about the incident where he put his hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any drugs at the time? No. What did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? You went to an urgent care, not the hospital, right? Like she's saying just right as the answer. But you told the prosecutors it was bloody and you went to the hospital. I don't remember that. Look at this. And so this is material not shown to the jury. I see that I said that. Now in this, I think it's like now in cross-examination. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. I see that I said that. Do you remember Mr. Agnifilo asking you about an incident in LA? Objection, overruled. And he hit her like in Jamaica, arguing. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So they were doing right here. Agnifilo is Diddy's attorney. That's why I wasn't understanding. So they did the cross. All right. So now this is the prosecutors again asking her questions. They get to come back up. So that's who's asking. That's just like, why is Agnifilo asking a question about himself?
Morgan didn't just show up in court with her story. She came armed with evidence. Her testimony wasn't based on vague or shaky recollections. She brought tangible proof that sent shockwaves through the courtroom. That's the part that caught everyone off guard. As powerful as her words were the evidence she revealed seemed to push this case into leaving no doubt that her role in the trial was mocked bigger than anyone had anticipated. So what kind of evidence did she provide according to insiders? Carrie handed over a combination of text messages, photos, and even recordings that supported her testimony. One set of messages allegedly showed direct communication between Cassie and Carrie during the time she says the incidents with Diddy took place in these texts. Cassie reportedly described abusive moments in real time, reaching out to Carrie out of fear and desperation. Lawyers read excerpts from these texts in court, and those present described the content as chilling. One onlooker mentioned how the judge seemed visibly uncomfortable when the details were shared, proof of just how serious the allegations were. But that wasn't all. Carrie also shared photos she claims Cassie sent her, which reportedly showed bruises and injuries. Consistent with her allegations, these images were entered into evidence with them as graphic and heartbreaking. The courtroom fell silent as the prosecution displayed them, leaving those watching to piece together the timeline of events that led to these moments. Carrie testified that Cassie would often send her these photos as a way of documenting the abuse and looking for guidance. The photos were tied to messages where Cassie reportedly expressed a fear of retaliation if she tried to leave the relationship. Witnesses in the courtroom commented later that the combination of the photos and texts seemed to paint a clear and disturbing picture of what was allegedly happening behind closed doors. And then came the recordings, arguably the most damning piece of evidence she brought to court. According to reports, Carrie provided audio files that captured arguments between Diddy and Cassie. In one clip played for the courtroom, Diddy was allegedly heard yelling in a way that corroborated claims of his explosive temper. One recording reportedly included threats, something that visibly shook those listening in the gallery, while the defense tried to argue that the recordings lacked context and didn't prove anything conclusive. The sheer tone of them was enough to make a lasting impression, courtroom insiders described the reaction to this evidence as overwhelming. One journalist wrote that the room was frozen in tension as each piece of evidence was presented, laying bare the allegations like never before. Even the jury seemed stunned, with one insider saying some appeared to be visibly shaken by the recordings. It was clear this wasn't just a he said, she said scenario anymore. Carr's evidence added a layer of credibility that was hard to dismiss. So where does this leave the case with Carr's testimony and the evidence she presented? The balance of power in this trial has clearly shifted. Her words weren't just accusations, they came with proof that seemed to back up every claim. This case is far from over, but one thing is undeniable. Carrie Morgan's testimony just changed everything. What happens next could be even more shocking. This trial isn't just about Diddy and Cassie. It's about the courage it takes to confront powerful figures and reveal painful truths Carrie Morgan's testimony has pushed this case into unprecedented territory, and the evidence she brought with her has the potential to change everything. But as shocking as this has already been, it feels like the surface has barely been scratched. What happens next? Cold redefine everything we know about this case. Let us know your thoughts in comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for updates as this unfolds. Stay tuned, there's still so much more ahead. Asterisk.